propel you. You can let fear keep you in a place where you don't deserve to be at, or you can let fear take you to meet the greatest version of yourself. I want you to look at fear as your best friend. By the end of this segment, I hope that you learn to dance with your fear, embrace your fear, because this is truth. And think about this. I've met a lot of successful people that have fears. Everybody that touches the stage, they got fears. We're human beings. I met a lot of successful people that have fears, but I never met a successful person that didn't find the courage to face them. Because everything that you want for your life is on the other side of that fear. I promise you that. Everything that's meant for your life is on the other side of that fear. And I'm going to talk about 4 things right now that you can do, apply to your life. Because listen, it's not about being here and hearing this and clapping and yelling. That's great. What I care about is you taking action in your life. Because application creates transformation. So get ready to take your notes. 4 things. Number 1, when it comes to fear and how to overcome fear and use fear and make fear be your best friend. The first thing I want to tell you is this. When the reward is strong enough, okay, when the reward is strong enough, your fears will never be great enough. I'm going to say that again. When the reward is strong enough, your fears will never be great enough. If you think about times in your life where you conquered your fear, it's because of this. Whatever it was for you, right? Whatever it was that you were trying to achieve, that you were trying to get, that you were trying to save, that you were trying to help, whatever it is in any aspect of your life, the reason that you were able to be fearless is because that thing on the other side of the fear required you to be fearless. See, a lot of us think that in order to get something, we have to, not have fears in our life. It's not true. You're going to have a lot of fears in your life. But this is the thing that I want to share with you right now. I'll use a perfect illustration. Y'all remember Harambe? Y'all remember that? The gorilla and the child fell in there. Raise your hand if you remember that. Y'all remember that? You remember in the zoo and all those things, okay? So I'm going to tell a quick story about myself. I don't like animals, right? I don't like wild animals at all. I love nature. I don't love the things in nature at all. But I'll tell you this. If my child fell into that, and I'm afraid of gorillas, by the way. Like, I know we have animal lovers out there, but that ain't me. If I see a gorilla, I'm about to get on my NFL game and run as fast as I can. That's just me. I probably shouldn't run because I think they tell you to stand still and don't move. I don't agree with that. I'm going to run. I'm going to try my best to get away. But I'll tell you this. If my child had fell into that pit, you better believe I'm going into that pit fearless. I don't care if it's a gorilla. I don't care if it's 10 silverbacks. I don't care what's in that pit because I love my child that much. With your life, think about this right now. Think about your greatest fear that's holding you back. Maybe it's public speaking. Maybe it's asking. Maybe it's starting your dream. Maybe it's a physical fear. Okay, think about that. Now I want you to think about something or someone in your life that you love dearly. And if you lost that person, you will feel crushed. If you lost that person, you would feel like your life was just gone. Think about that person. Now I'm going to present the same scenario to you. If your biggest fear was in the way of that person, right? Maybe it's something about to attack that person. Maybe it's your child. Maybe it's your friend, somebody that you truly love. How many of you, by show of hands, raise your hand, will go attack that fear? Right? No question asked. No question asked at all. Because what's on the other side of the fear means that much to you. And I know this might seem very insensitive, but a lot of you are being paralyzed by fear because what's on the other side don't mean that much to you. I'm probably about to lose some people now, but I got to be honest with you. If fear stops you every single time, it's because you haven't created enough meaning on the other side of the fear. And this is what fear is. The definition of fear is simple. Fear is just a premeditated or predetermined result from a situation you haven't experienced yet. Some of us right now, we're telling ourselves that we're going to fail before we ever even try to succeed. Some of us are telling ourselves that we're not going to win before we ever even try to win. Some of us are telling us, oh, this is not meant for our life, so why are you ever going to go for it? Stop telling yourself what it's going to be when you haven't even tried to experience it. It's like the boxer stepping into the ring, saying, I'm going to lose this fight. He's not going to step into the ring because he already told himself that he was going to lose. So with this first little piece, you have to create enough meaning in what you do. Because I promise you, if you don't create enough meaning, fear will paralyze you, hard times will paralyze you, haters will paralyze you, judgment will paralyze you, rejection will paralyze you. All these things will prevent you from being the greatest you. But if you find meaning in what you do, can't no obstacle, can't no challenge, can't no setback hold your life back. And I'm sorry I'm getting passionate, but I don't care. This means a lot to me. Because there's a lot of you out there that people need you to show up. It ain't just about you. Just imagine if I would have never showed up after football and I would have said my life was over. I wouldn't be able, I don't say this to brag, but it's the truth. I wouldn't be able to touch millions of people across the world. And you better believe public speaking was a fear of mine. You probably can't tell right now, but I'm an introverted person. So stepping on stage, I'm like, no way, go get somebody else. I'm not doing it. But I created enough meaning to go serve. So if you want to learn how to be fearless even when facing your fears, change what awaits on the other side. Because remember, when the reward is great enough, the struggle will never be strong enough. If y'all got that? Raise your hands for me. I would tell you to say straight up, but I can't hear y'all. There we go. I see you, Austin. I see you, Kristen. What's up, Barbara? So that's number one. That's number one. Number two, I'm probably all the way up in the camera, my bad. Number two, write this down. In overcoming your fear, to make sure your fear powers you instead of paralyzes you. Okay, we're not trying to erase fear, but fear will often lead you to a place where you need to be. Like fear can be your compass. When I look over my life and I think about all the things that happened great, fear was present. So fear can be your compass to guide you to where your life needs to be if you allow it to. Number two, I want to talk about failure a little bit because this is probably the biggest fear everybody has. We're so afraid to fail. And most of us, we're not really afraid to fail. We're afraid to fail in front of the world. We're afraid to fail because people are going to judge you. But some always talk about with judgment. I don't know how many of y'all deal with judgment, but this is just the truth. People are judging you regardless. No matter how bad you are, you think you may be, no matter how great you are, how rock bottom you are at your life, how great, people are judging you regardless. Period. So you might as well give them something great to judge. Be you and give your greatness to the world, okay? Number two, failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a part of it. Failure is feedback. Am I telling you to go fail on purpose? Not go fail on purpose. But I'm telling you, if you're not failing, at some point, it's because you are too comfortable in your comfort zone. And this is just my truth. I would rather be outside of my comfort zone to produce a more comfortable life in my future than stay inside my comfort zone and produce a more uncomfortable life in my future. So you have a choice with that. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's a part of it. If success was a road, right? If it was a road, guess what it would be paved with? Failure. If success was a mountain, a lot of that climb would be failure. You got to change your relationship with failure. Real-time moment for you right now, from me. I had an interview probably 3 days ago. It was an interview to speak at this big company, and I actually never did one of those before. Usually I just go speak, but they wanted to interview me. The first thing I thought about, I was like, dang, like what if I fail? Like what if I mess up, say the wrong thing? And I was trying to live in perfection. A lot of us were afraid to fail because we bought this perfection myth because of social media, because everybody's showing you just the highlight reel instead of the behind the scenes. Forget perfection. Perfection for me doesn't exist. You should wrap your life in progression, not perfection. Because perfection will paralyze you just like fear. Some of you have never started it because you're trying to be perfect. Some of you have never went live on Instagram or Facebook because you're trying to be perfect. My most imperfect moments produce the perfect purposes in those moments. I had moments where I was on stage and I bombed it. And I was like, man, that sucked. That was terrible. I was like hiding after. I didn't want to talk to nobody. Then when I got home, my inbox was flooded with messages that said, Trent, that was the most impactful speech I ever heard in my life. Sometimes we're too hard on ourselves because we're trying to be perfect. The perfect time doesn't exist. The perfect time is right now. And some of us, And some of us, and I can say this like this because I was that person, so I'm not picking on you, but it's true. Some of us, we are waiting for the perfect time. I know this might seem very insensitive, but some people are going to spend their whole entire life waiting. Some people are going to die waiting. Die waiting on the perfect opportunity, die waiting on the perfect team, die waiting on the perfect messages. You spend your whole life waiting. There's a difference between patience. Patience is with actions. I'm not telling you not to be patient because you need patience in your journey. But some of us are having inaction and we're spending our whole entire life waiting on somebody to show up. We're spending our whole entire life waiting on the world to give us something. This might seem insensitive again, but it's the truth. The truth sometimes hurts, but it always helps. The world owes you nothing. And if you think the world really cares about you, I know there's great people in the world that do care about you. But the grand scheme of the world, I promise you, when you go through your hardest times, most people won't be there. When you're having self-pity for yourself and self-doubt and you're self-sabotaging, most people won't be there. You got to learn how to embrace your failure even at your rock bottom and use your failure to propel your life. So with that speaking engagement, I told myself, wait a minute. And I want you to do this too. Debbie, I see you. David. I told myself, wait a second. I got the opportunity to fail. Trent, don't you know how long you've been praying for this? Don't you remember at rock bottom when you were wishing to even have the opportunity? Don't you remember when you had nothing on your plate? Now you're trying to complain that you have too much on your plate? Go back to that moment. Write this down. Failure, the opportunity to fail, is a blessing. See, y'all like, you lost me there, Trent. The opportunity to fail is a blessing. Because you are in the position that most people want to be in. So in that moment, I had to remind myself, like they called you. You put in work for this long that you're in the position to be able to fail, to be able to succeed. So start reminding yourself of your greatness. Some people are praying for the things that you have. Let that bring confidence in your soul. My greatest failures have led to my greatest success in my life. I've lost some good relationships in my past, but those relationships, guess what? Now I thank God for them. They led to my marriage. I lost some solid friends in my life that I thought were solid. And I was hurt during those times, but losing those friends led to me building an incredible team. I lost a dream. And some of y'all might not feel me with this, but it was my everything. There was no other life outside of football. I want to be clear about that. It was my pinnacle, it was my mecca, it was everything. And I lost that, and it led to this. So don't tell me you can't bounce back after a setback. Don't tell me that there's no lessons in failure. Don't tell me that failure can't help you create the greatest you inside of you. But you got to start learning how to use it instead of it using you. All right, so that's number 2. I know I talked about it a lot. Y'all's notes probably are crazy. Number 3. This is a major one. The fear of staying the same has to outweigh the fear of change. I'm going to say that again. I see you, Jennifer. Jennifer, like, I feel you on that. The fear of staying the same has to outweigh the fear of change. What do I mean by this? We are very good at playing out scenarios if we go do it and what's going to happen. So some of you have played out scenarios in my life. So for example, maybe I was backstage and I told myself like, hey, I know what's going to happen if I go out there and maybe I fail. All these things are going to happen, so I prevent myself from being it, right? That's a part of it. But I want to change your mindset with this. How many of you, and this is like a game changer when it comes to facing your fears, how many of you have played out the scenario of you not going to do it? Of you not going to start that business? Yeah, you could fail. Yeah, it could fall through. That's a possibility. But I promise you, what's the worst that can happen? You'll find a way to recover from it. You'll use the losses to teach you how to win. You'll use the breakdown to create unbreakable strength inside of you. But if you don't show up, if you don't answer the call, if you don't embrace your purpose, if you don't walk in your greatness, what's going to happen? What is your life going to be like 3 years from now? Because you didn't embrace your fears. Who are the people and the strangers in the world? Because maybe it's your family that you quote unquote think you're letting down. But guess what? There are strangers in the world that you haven't even met yet that need you. What's going to happen if you don't show up? I had that fear with starting rehab time. As I told you before, I was an introverted person. Still am a bit. I had a bad past, at least I thought it was. I was at my rock bottom. I felt like I had nothing to offer to the world. What's special about my story? I didn't go to Toastmasters. I didn't take public speaking classes. There's so many people in the world that are so much better than me. Now, I'm getting chills in my body right now because I'm in a moment where it's hard to explain, man. And I look back and I think about what would have happened if I didn't decide to pick up my cell phone and give my gift to the world. My gift was unpolished. It wasn't spectacular. It wasn't any of that. But I decided to give my gift to the world. And so many of you right now, you're leaving your gift wrapped up. Like you're not treating it like it's Christmas or your birthday. Christmas and your birthday, you unwrapping the gifts. You ain't leaving nothing wrapped up. And you're showing it off to everybody in the world. Why can't you do that with your gift, your talent, with your life? My mom told me this, and I'll never forget it. She said, Trent, you're called to reach people that nobody can reach but you. And she said, until you answer that call, you'll never understand what you're created to do. And those words weren't just for me. Those words are for you. And your calling may look different than mine. It may look different from your neighbors. It may look different from Dean's and Pete's and Eric's and everybody else that came on this stage, but you have a calling, my friend. And I feel like you will always have a void in your heart if you don't answer that call, because that calling has showed up so many times. I remember in my life, people say, Trent, you were called to be a speaker. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm called to catch touchdown passes. What are you talking about? Trent, you are called to do all. No, I'm not. That's my biggest fear. But it took me stepping into my biggest fear to find my greatest purpose. So as I'm pleading with you, and I'm talking to you right now, what's the lie that you've been telling yourself? What's the lie that you allow people to tell yourself? Because maybe that's the fear. Maybe it's not your capabilities, because you're more than capable. You can learn skill. But maybe it's because you're afraid of telling everybody about what you're doing and it doesn't work out. I get it. I remember my first speaking engagements, it was like 5 people. They were my family and my friends that showed up. But I kept going. I kept taking my journey step by step by step, because I realized and understood this truth. You'll never get to your peak if you're afraid to climb. You'll never get to your finish line if you never start. But Trent, where's the how? How do I do it? Forget the how right now. Focus on the why, because I promise you the journey, once you take the step, the journey will always reveal the how. So number 3, let that fear of staying the same outweigh the fear of change. Number 4, as we wrap this up, you'll never lose if you always find a way to create your wins. One of my greatest tactics that's helped me is telling myself, no matter the outcome, I'm always going to make a positive outcome out of it. No matter what happens in the situation, the experience, I'm always going to get the most out of it, because this is true. Your perspective, because I love to talk about perspective. It could be your power or your prison. A prison perspective is seeing everything working against you. Right? Just imagine that you have an experience and you have an option